Kia ora and welcome to the Niggly Niche Cast. I am the Diggly Dude, Dr. Pepto Panther, Mr. Slippers, talking Blackcaps cricket with the wild card. We have just watched the Blackcaps defeat the West Indies in a bit of a thriller. So we're going to run through a bunch of different Blackcaps ideas, sussing out where they currently sit at this Cricket World Cup. As always, support the Niche Cache and the Niche Cast as best you can. We are on Patreon. That's the best way to support us. Sponsor the podcast if that's your buzz. Like, subscribe, rate, and review. And just share it around. Tell a friend and just put the good vibes out there because we appreciate it greatly. Just before we touch on the Blackcaps wildcard, I just wanted to gauge your thoughts on Mr. Sean Marks and the Brooklyn Nets. Obviously, Sean Marks, one of the greatest Kiwi exports, sporting exports in the that we've got. I was going to say in the world. And there's a bit of a situation here with the Brooklyn Nets because they are hunting apparently hunting a big name signing, big name free agent. And I just want to get your thoughts on what you think the Brooklyn Nets are going to do, because I've been thinking, I'm like, what we've seen from Sean Marks is a very Kiwi ethos in how he's running the Brooklyn Nets and how they go about their business. There's no, they've got a team of apparent no names and they do a great job together. He's brought, as we're talking about the All Whites coaching, he's brought a group of men together. He's put the right pieces in place. He's been very thrifty because he's had to. So my question to you is, how the fuck are you? And what's your assessment of what the Brooklyn Nets are up to? Because I've got this vibe and I'm like, why the Brooklyn Nets, they can just kind of sit where they are, and that's the Kiwi thing to do with Sean Marks. Not to say that they are resting on their laurels, because they've got some very talented players who are developing nicely at the Brooklyn Nets, but is it a certainty that they are going to go out and sign a big name like Kyrie Irving and bring that drama to their NBA team?
Yeah, well, I mean, Kyrie Irving's the dude that's being linked, isn't he? He's the dude that we're hearing over and over and over is going to Brooklyn, and maybe that's true, maybe that's not true. I don't really know. I think it's a bit of an odd one because, first of all, I think they are going to target a max free agent, and I think they've built themselves up in such a way, and everything over the last 3 years, however long it's been, has been to get them into this position. Because you can make the playoffs as they just did with one All-Star. You don't really make a run in the playoffs unless you've got a couple, and if you've got 3 All-Stars, then you're looking at NBA Finals there. So, I mean, that's where they want to get to. They've developed guys to an extent, but you need to, what they've done is built the perfect set of sideman kind of thing, and in the Eastern Conference, without LeBron James these days, that's enough to push in for a late playoff spot. But, it's not going to take them over the top. So you do need that max guy. You do need to chuck some money at someone. Whether Kyrie Irving is the right guy, I'm suspicious. Because, I mean, for one thing, if you get Kyrie Irving, then you have to then renounce on D'Angelo Russell, who is a guy who's done a lot to get them to where they are. He's a guy who has a lot more... we know the player that Kyrie Irving is, and he's a great player, and he can win you a lot of games. He's also a little bit of a weird individual, which I don't know if that fits in entirely to the ethos that the Nets have built themselves up with lately. Maybe they believe that they can, in their situation, different story. And Kyrie Irving is a proven winner before, so it's not a massive deal. It's not like he's going to lose you games. He's a great player. But the thing on that is, I just sort of think that. And we know that they're going to go after these dudes because they cleared off that Alan Crabb contract, which frees up the space for it. Which means I think that, I'm not 100% sure on this, it's been a while since I wrote about it, but I think it means they might be able to get a max contract and keep D'Angelo Russell. Of course, if they sign a player in D'Angelo Russell's position, or if D'Angelo gets really frisky about wanting absolute top dollar, then I don't think that's going to happen, but it is possible. So, looking at what the Brooklyn Nets have done, looking at all the goodwill they've built, how much they've achieved with so little in terms of assets over the last couple of years, it's been such a perfect, absolute storybook rebuild, perfectly exactly how you can do this thing. and that takes some luck. It takes some skill and forward planning as well. I don't see why they aren't, like, Kyrie Irving is a nice name, but I don't see why they wouldn't be effective for, say, Kawhi Leonard, why he wouldn't be interested. There's already, like, it's been talked for a while that he's pretty much a done deal to the Clippers, whether or not that's true. Like, we only get to find out on July 1st, don't we? And, like, it's a bummer about KD as well, because I would have thought KD would have been the perfect guy. Like, if you think, people always said how Kevin Durant was such a perfect, like, if he ever ended up with Coach Popovich on the Spurs, it would be the most ideal matchup ever. And, well, Sean Marks is a Spurs product. Was hired pretty much because he could bring that Spurs mentality to the Nets, which is what he's done. And I don't think that's probably going to happen now that Kevin Durant's injured, but you never know, because I reckon he'd still get max contract offers just because he's Kevin Durant, and in a year's time, coming back from an Achilles injury, he'll still be some version of Kevin Durant, but it would mean a write-off for this current season. So I don't know, maybe the Nets don't mind that. Maybe the Nets are in a position where they can chill with that. I'm not sure, but it's definitely some decisions to be made, I suppose.
Yeah, because it just feels like it's either Kyrie Irving or D'Angelo Russell, and when I say the Kiwi idea, the Kiwi thing here is that you stick with D'Angelo Russell, like, especially after the season he had. There's a couple other guys who had injuries who were very good for the Nets last year, and it just doesn't feel like the Kiwi thing to do, or the Brooklyn Nets thing to do,
or the San Antonio Spurs
is to go out and get a guy who basically kind of tore apart the Boston Celtics. We've got Steven Adams in the NBA, but equally as important and interesting at this time is Sean Marks running the Brooklyn Nets and how he's got that team to this point. So I'm just fascinated. Obviously, Steven Adams may be in trade discussions over the next few weeks, so we've got that to follow. But then also what Sean Marks is up to in terms of running the Brooklyn Nets is a very interesting narrative for us Kiwis to keep an eye on. Wild card. Blackcaps defeated West Indies by 5 runs. Kane Williamson hit his second century in a row. Ross Taylor hit 69 in this game. Blackcaps scored 291. And then very almost lost that game thanks to Carlos Brathwaite hitting 101 off 82 balls. Rather extraordinary innings. And of course, Chris Gale hit some runs. Shimron Hetmeyer also hit some runs. And Lockie Ferguson's been in great form for the Blackcaps. We finally got wickets from Trent Boult. I guess my lead-in question here, after the Blackcaps defeated South Africa, now they have defeated West Indies wildcard. Do you believe the Blackcaps can win the World Cup?
I believe they're going to make the semi-finals, because at this point they're basically a lock-on for the semi-finals, having got those last 2 victories under the belt. Just don't think any of those teams from outside can catch them. And we've been everyone's been talking about the fact that this World Cup was so open and competitive because there wasn't like a necessarily easy beat, and Afghanistan haven't quite lived up to the hype. Although they did all right against India overnight, but still lost that game. But still, like, a lot of those teams from in that sort of 5th to 8th range where it was supposed to be so competitive. The problem has been that they're so competitive and they're all beating each other and taking points off each other, so there's no like obvious candidate just running away with it to challenge the Blackcaps for 4th spot. And at this point, I would be disappointed if the Blackcaps can't sneak into 1st or 2nd, because, England have dropped a couple games. Australia lost to India, whereas we managed to get a cheeky no result there. Great performance from the lads for that no result. So, don't see why we can't get a slightly more favourable matchup, although I don't think any of those matchups are going to be favourable. So, to win the World Cup, they're basically in the semi-finals. To win the World Cup, they'd have to win back-to-back against what is almost certainly going to be England and or Australia and or India. So can we beat 2 of those teams consecutively? Probably not. I think they're good enough to make the final. I think they can, if the right performance happens at the right time, I think they can do that. I'm still not backing them to beat those teams. We still haven't seen them play any of those teams. They got Pakistan next, and then they got England and Australia. I'm not sure if that's the right order. It might be back to back there. Back to France, I mean. But yeah, they didn't play India. They've still got to play those other two teams, so we actually don't know what they're going to be like against the semi-final teams. But they took care of business in these last two games. They weren't easy games. They were, kind of banana peel games, really, against desperate teams. And they almost lost. They looked comfortable at other times. They looked like they were going to lose it a couple times in both of those games, and they managed to win. And I'm not too worried about how they win. I'm just more worried that they win, and finding a way to win at a World Cup is the most important thing. Whether there are a lot of positives and negatives we can talk about, the fact is they're still undefeated at this point, and I'm impressed enough by that to say that I won't rule them out going on a little run, but no, I don't think they're going to win the World Cup yet at this point.
Two desperate teams who are desperate because they're not quite good enough. That's a key point to make about those two teams. I asked that question because, as I'm going to explain over the course of this discussion, I still think there is a veil of illusion clouding the Blackcaps, and I am certainly not as excited about the Blackcaps as many other people seem to be. But in saying that, I definitely believe that the Blackcaps can win the World Cup. And I say that because just looking around this World Cup, I just see a Blackcaps team that can... I don't think they have the massive upside of other teams that you're mentioning, the teams that will probably defeat them. But I do see a team that is probably not going to play badly. And as we've seen against South Africa and West Indies, you can win a game quite easily if you just don't play bad cricket. And the Blackcaps have the tools to be able to move through different situations. They've got different players who can adapt, is the key word for this World Cup, adapt to different situations, game situations, circumstances, conditions. And I just see this Blackcaps team being a team of kind of 6, 7 out of 10. And that may be good enough to win a World Cup. Because if you show up and you play if you just play our solid days cricket against a good team and they don't quite show up with the right dominating mindset, you can definitely win those games. So that isn't to say that I'm overly excited about this Blackcaps team at the moment, and there's a whole bunch of reasons as to why. We'll keep the good vibes flowing though, and I believe you've got some interesting Kane Williamson numbers that may be rather juicy, and I just want to preface that by saying Kane Williamson has been bloody good. He's our best batsman. It's for the Blackcaps to perform well at this World Cup, they need Williamson and Taylor to be scoring the bulk of their runs. I'm just looking at the leading run scorers at this World Cup. David Warner, Shakib Al Hassan, Joe Root, Aaron Finch, Kane Williamson, Rohit Sharma, Owen Morgan, Virat Kohli, Mushfiqur Rahim, Stephen Smith. Those are the best batsmen in the world. Johnny Bairstow, Jason Roy, Ben Stokes, Ross Taylor, Joss Butler, Chris Gale, Quinton de Kock. It's just the best batsmen in the world standing up at this World Cup to score the bulk of their team's runs. So what are you going to throw at me in terms of Kane Williamson and his statistical juiciness?
Strap yourself in here for a second here, Doc. Make sure those slippers are on nice and tight, because Kane Williamson, obvious, like what you said there is real interesting, because you're right, it's the best players who have been stepping up for these teams and scoring the runs. And for the Blackcaps to do well at this World Cup, it was known from the start like that there's questions about like not so much their depth, but about like the arrangement of their depth, like who plays, what lineups is the most effective. And there's been a lot of talk about the two all-rounders coming from a certain commentator, which I might come back to later on. But the important thing for the Blackcaps is that in their two toughest games that they've played so far, two pretty slippery games against South Africa and West Indies, Kane Williamson has stepped up and scored 100 in each. An unbeaten 100 against South Africa, and then 148 against the West Indies. That's his highest ever ODI score. So let me just tell you this. Over his career batting in England, he averages 79.2 at a strike rate of 90.5 with 400s and 850s, which is outstanding. Consider that in his first tour to England in 2013, he got a duck on his first game as well. So that probably would nudge that up over 80 if you looked more recently. Can't be bothered working out the exact numbers, but since 2015, his last 13 innings in England or Wales read... where are we? 45, 93, 118, 90, 50, 100, 87, 57. Didn't bat against Sri Lanka in the first game of this World Cup, but he followed that up with a 40, a 79 not out, 106 not out, and 148. So when 40 is your lowest score in a country over your last 5 years of touring there, you're doing a pretty decent job. And Kane Williamson so far is absolutely bossing this Kiwi batting lineup, and doesn't get much better than that, Doc. It doesn't get much better than watching Kane Williamson absolutely carve who was it he hit for six over the... Was it Felaquaio when he just pumped him over the top? Reminiscent of Grant Elliott back in the day? What a beautiful moment that was.
Oh, this is where I start my Veil of Illusion wildcard, because I was watching that South Africa game, and I'll just pull up that scorecard, because Mr. Andile Pulekokwayo was South Africa's most expensive bowler, and then
he was rubbish.
Yeah, he was rubbish.
We knew if he was bowling that over, that was the over to target. Like, he was the release bowler for sure.
And then he's bowling at the death, and South Africa had a bunch of misfields. They basically handed that game to the Blackcaps, and it was we'll kind of work through this in chronological order, I guess. That game was a far heavier case of South Africa losing the game than the Blackcaps winning that game. And it looked to me like a South Africa team that had just been through the ringer, low in confidence. They didn't know how to win a game against a big nation. They had they obviously have an idea of what they're doing. They got their plans, they got their ideas. They are all professional cricketers performing at the highest level, but there was no efficiency about their work. And yeah, as I said, they lost that game as opposed to the Blackcaps winning that game. And to me, it was summed up by Pulekokwayo being rather trash. Like, all the other South African bowlers conceded less than 5 runs per over, and then Pulekokwayo concedes 8.58, 8 runs an over, and he's bowling key overs at the death. And the shot that Kane Williamson hit for 6 is a length ball outside off stump. And so I'm all here to praise Kane Williamson. Like, he's obviously one of the world's best batsmen, the best batsman New Zealand's ever seen. But he's getting dished up, length deliveries in the penultimate over of the game, and it's just like, what are these dudes doing, bowling a Kane Williamson like that? What are you doing? What are you doing? That kind of set things in motion for this vibe of Blackcaps getting the job done, and that's what I'm saying is they just need to go about their business. And I guess better teams aren't going to provide those opportunities, so it's whether the Blackcaps can go above and beyond. But against the other teams, the Blackcaps just perform at the steady level, and the other teams lose the game. The other teams cough up possession. The other team make errors and can't execute their skills when it matters most, and the Blackcaps just perform at the steady level. And that's where I kind of got this idea that, whoa, the Blackcaps were pretty good. They played their typical solid brand of cricket, but when it mattered most, South Africa lost the game. And then you look at this West Indies game, and West Indies essentially capitulated with the bat. You had five batsmen dismissed for 0 or 1. And then you had 5 batsmen score over 10. And sure, Carlos Brathwaite almost made a miraculous save of that game. He almost won the game for the West Indies, but you're not going to be performing well at a World Cup if 5 of your batsmen are scoring 1 or 0 and losing, like, doubling up in the wickets. So you lose a wicket, next ball lose another wicket, or next over lose another wicket. That's not how you win games of cricket. And we had Matt Henry getting pumped in this game. He went for 8.44 and served up some meat pies in the death overs to Brathwaite to just smack to the boundary. It wasn't Matt Henry's best performance. So it's just a weird situation, and as you alluded to earlier, like the Blackcaps needed to win these games. It didn't matter how they won these games, and this plays into the vibe of them just playing solid cricket and find a way to win. That's what I'm basing my hypotheses that they could win this World Cup upon, because they don't really have bad days at the office, and if they do perform averagely, they can still find a way to win. It's just that I don't think we've seen this Blackcaps team show that they are capable of stepping up and going up to another level, and that kind of leads into a discussion about the role players in this Blackcaps team, because Colin Munro and Martin Guptill haven't been scoring any runs wildcard, and neither has Tom Latham. So it's a rather weird situation for this Blackcaps batting lineup.
Yeah. The openers not really laying down the runs. It was quite interesting in this game that both teams lost 2 early wickets. For West Indies, it wasn't their 2 openers because Chris Gale hung around for a long time and served up some vintage Chris Gale for a while there. But even when Chris Gale was doing that, it didn't necessarily feel like the game was like it was too early to feel like the game was out of hand. It was always just a matter of, okay, this isn't fun, but let's get him out and see what happens. And that is what happened, because a few wickets, they lost, what was it, like 5 quick wickets in the middle order there. And I thought what was pretty notable about that is those were the middle overs, and it was Lockie Ferguson and Trent Boult taking the wickets, like those strike bowlers bowling in a dangerous time. So I like that from Kane Williamson. I liked him bringing back those 2 guys later on as well, Ferguson and Boult, and bowling pretty successfully in terms of just trying to halt what they were doing. And then, of course, Matt Henry came on, and we'll come back to Matt Henry later. I thought the South Africa game, I was kind of scratching my head for a while trying to figure out if Munro and Guptill were just unlucky or and how they got out. I think Guptill was definitely unlucky. Like, he slipped and kicked kicked the bail off himself. Like, that's just you can say maybe he was off balance or whatever, but ultimately, like, that is just a 1 in a million dismissal. And he was doing a little bit of that, what you want to see from Martin Guptill at that time. He was just sort of plodding around, not scoring at crazy rates, but just making sure to put the odd one to the fence, and it looked like he was trying to build a Martin Guptill innings. So I was kind of like, even more so than his unbeaten knock against Sri Lanka, because Colin Munro had one of those as well, and I just did, like, it was the state of that game. It didn't really matter. We were going to win that regardless. Sri Lanka didn't really have the fire in the bellies after being skittled early on. So, like, that was a bit of a write-off, but those are the only real runs that these 2 have scored all tournament. And like, a little bit promise. I didn't see basically anything of our batting effort against the West Indies, so I'm not sure. I can't tell you how terrible the dismissals were or whatever here, but the way Guptill went against South Africa, I was a little bit more enthused by, even if he didn't get big runs. And as we all know, like, just because you're batting well doesn't mean you will, and sometimes you bat crap and every edge hits, bounces in front of a fielder or rolls to the fence, and you just lay him on from there. But the way Colin Munro got out against South Africa, I think, was a bit more concerning, because it was unlucky. He edged one onto his thigh pad and it just ballooned up for a caught and bowled. But it was yet another example of Colin Munro getting cramped by a bowler bowling in towards him, and, like, he's just it's frustrating because you can see exactly what he's there to do. Like they want him to be able to get the innings up and running with a quick 30 off 20 or whatever. Like just hit a couple sixes, get us a little bit of momentum so that Kane Williamson walks in, and we've at least gotten a little bit of control in the game. But it's just not going to happen because he's a little too easy to be figured out, and I'm worried. Like there hasn't been a change to this lineup yet, and like Gary Stead, I think, said that he doesn't, unless something drastic happens, he doesn't really want to be rotating players. So it is going to come down to form or injuries. I know Henry Nicholls isn't the perfect opener to be coming in for him, but I just think at this point, I just don't understand. And it comes back to the whole thing. Like they dropped Colin Munro leading into this World Cup, and now all of a sudden he's back in as the guy they're just going to go with because they're so enamored with that idea that like he can be Brendan McCullum 2.0. And they've already tried to find Brendan McCullum 2.0 at the Champions Trophy, different coaching regime, but still, same batting coach with Luke Ronke, and that didn't work. And like, there's only one Brendan McCullum. It's the problem. And yeah, I'll be honest. I think if there's one, we've talked a lot about Munro and Matt Henry because they're the two sort of guys who they got in there because of injuries at the start, and their places probably weren't entirely. Haven't at any point in this tournament been entirely like locked on, but I'm still worried about both of them, and Munro especially because we can't be starting like 5 for 1 every game because it's just a waste of a wicket. Am I laying it on too strong there?
If you're talking about Colin Munro though, you got to say the same about Martin Guptill. Like sure, Martin Guptill had a bit of rotten luck, but that's cricket. If things aren't going your way, that's how you get out. And it doesn't matter how you get out, you've got out. Because you can be, if you're not in form, you're getting out every single which way. It doesn't matter. It literally doesn't matter how you get out because it's just not your time, or you're just lacking such confidence. Like maybe in a different situation, Martin Guptill just stands his ground and just spanks it to the boundary and his feet don't even move. But because of, maybe a simmering little bit of confidence dip, having only scored one 50-plus score against Sri Lanka in 5 innings, then things change and things don't go your way. So if we're questioning Colin Munro as an early wicket candidate, same has to go for Martin Guptill, but you can't make any changes to that opening combination this late in the World Cup. Like that would be...
That's the worry.
That would be peak Blackcaps. That would just be like, what are you doing right now? Because you've just got to stick with those two. You just have to stick with those two through these final stages of round robin, and then forward into knockout cricket and just hope for the best and hope that Kane Williamson and Ross Taylor do their job. Just looking at this World Cup leading run scorers, let's see how many players we have here. We got 49 batsmen who have scored over 98 runs. Nathan Coulter-Nile, the Australian bowler, is the last batsman. He's got 98 runs, and there's 4 Kiwi batsmen on that list. Of 49 batsmen, we've got 4 Kiwis. Guptill and Munro are fairly low on that list, and then you got Ross Taylor and Kane Williamson. So that's less than ideal. And do you remember Wildcard when we were looking at this bowling rankings, and we had Lockie Ferguson, we had Matt Henry, and we had someone else?
Jimmy Neesham.
Jimmy Neesham. They were all together in the top 4 wicket takers. So it's just an interesting exercise here to revisit that. Lockie Ferguson is still there. He's in 3rd. 14 wickets at an average of 15.5, RP of 4.76. And that's notable because of the 3, Mitchell Starc and Jofra Archer have 15 wickets each, so they've got 1 more wicket than Lockie Ferguson. But Archer is averaging 17 and Mitchell Starc is averaging 20. So Lockie Ferguson, but you can make the same argument for Mohamed Amir because he's got 13 wickets, so he's fourth in wickets, but he's got the best average. He's averaging 13. So Lockie Ferguson is up to his neck in terms of hanging in there with the best bowlers at this World Cup. Trent Bolt's come from out of the blue, and he is now on 8 wickets at average 26.87, which has him, 10th in the 10th. Oh, there's a large group there, so it's hard to say. But then Matt Henry's dipped down. He's got 8 wickets now, and let me just see his recent performances. He started his World Cup with 3 wickets and 4 wickets, and the last 3 games for Matt Henry, Afghanistan, South Africa, and West Indies, he took no wickets against Afghanistan, no wickets against South Africa, and 1 wicket against West Indies. So, not to toot our own horn here, but our little prediction about Matt Henry's form levelling off as the World Cup progressed has come to fruition, because he has taken 1 wicket in his last 3 games, which is less than ideal. As for Jimmy Neesham, he has 7 wickets at an average of 15.85, which is bloody handy.
5 of them came at once, though,
against Afghanistan of all teams, and he took 1 wicket against West Indies, didn't bowl against South Africa. So the most notable thing there is that Lockie Ferguson is in sizzling form, and you mentioned that coming back during the middle of the stages like that. Trent Bolt isn't that bowler for me. He's like just a classy operator who can bowl well at any stage of the innings. But it reminds me of Shane Bond. Lockie Ferguson's got that Shane Bond,
man.
Obviously it's the pace thing is one thing, but Shane Bond used to be brought back in the middle stages as a wicket taker. And this is doubly important because Lockie Ferguson is the major attacking weapon that the Blackcaps have. They've got Trent Bolt, but they don't really have another bowler who they can rely on in the middle stages to attack. So if a team's got a hot start and you need a wicket to slow them down and gain some ascendancy in the innings, Lockie Ferguson is that guy. So I'm just now interested. Teams are going to be very well aware of Lockie Ferguson's threat. So how does Lockie Ferguson deal with greater attention? And as we face better batsmen who can deal with that pace and what he offers, doesn't really swing the ball. So Mitchell Starc, he's going to swing the ball. Jofra Archer's a bit different because he kind of ambles in and bowls 150 Ks fairly easily. Mohamed Amir, he's a lefty who moves the ball around. Lockie Ferguson just steams in and bowls fast with good variations. So I'm just interested in seeing how that translates to high-pressure World Cup cricket as we move forward. But kudos to Lockie Ferguson because he's the only Kiwi bowler of that trio of Henry, Neesham and Ferguson who is still there among the World Cup's best bowlers.
Would you say that's surprising in any way, though? Like, at that time, would you have predicted if one guy is going to hold, like, only one of those 3 really had a legit chance of holding on to that sort of crown there, right?
Yeah, like, if you're picking one of the 3, you'd pick Lockie Ferguson. But let me throw this at your wildcard. We'll talk about the Kiwis versus Tonga Test match tomorrow in another episode, but over the past, basically since the start of last season, Ken Mamalo started all 5 tests for the Kiwis. He's been fantastic for the Warriors. He was fantastic against Tonga, and I said that he's arguably one of the best wingers in the world right now. And we've witnessed the rise of Ken Mamalo from being a sketchy winger. We don't really know if he's going to have a long career in first grade, and he's just consistently got better under Steve Kearney and then under Michael Maguire at the Kiwis international level as well. And I think it's the exact same scenario for Lockie Ferguson. it may be a bit more recent, but then again, the cricket season is more recent, so it's the timing doesn't really matter. But we came back from the United Arab Emirates with Lockie Ferguson and Ish Sodhi enjoying a consistent run of form under Gary Stead. That was Gary Stead's first tour as Blackcaps coach, and Lockie Ferguson was arguably the best Blackcaps bowler in the one-day cricket over in the UAE against Pakistan. And then from there, Lockie Ferguson has just consistently churned out good performances over the summer in Aotearoa. And here he is, the third best bowler at the World Cup, and arguably the Blackcaps' most threatening bowler, which to me is the exact same scenario as Kemba Malo, in the sense that we have witnessed it not necessarily with swashbuckling headline performances. Like, it's kind of crept up on you. Like, have you even noticed that Kemba Malo is one of the best wingers in the world?
Well, I mean, to get me to answer that, I got to admit that Kemba Malo is one of the best wingers in the world. I think he's without doubt one of the best running wingers. Ball in hand. I think he's really come on leaps and bounds as a finisher lately. I suppose those are the two most important things. He's the thing that's most notable with Kemba Malo is that he's like cut out the errors. He's become super reliable. So
exactly.
I suppose when you put those three things together, yeah, I guess you're up there, aren't you?
Well, if you're not making too many errors, he is. I think the stats were he's first in run meters, first in post contact meters, and second in total runs of all NRL players.
Decent.
Which that's my argument for him being one of the best in the world. But it's not something you just. Kemba Malo just shows up every week, rolls out a consistent 20 runs, 200 metres, scores a try, doesn't make any errors. Lockie Ferguson shows up for a game of ODI cricket, bowls 10 overs, take 2 wickets, 4.5 RPO, happy days. No one really pays attention to him. And now here he is, the third best bowler at this World Cup.
I'm glad you brought that up, because that's been something that I was really thinking about this morning, watching when the Blackcaps were not in a little bit of trouble, but when they were struggling to close that game out. They got in trouble immediately after Ferguson's spell ended. But, Brendan McCullum was sitting in the commentary box saying, they've got to bring back their 2 strike bowlers here. Their 2 strike bowlers. Got to bring back Ferguson and got to bring back Bolt. And Bolt came back immediately after he said that, and then Ferguson came on for the very next over. They each had 2 to go. They both churned through those overs, looked sharp, looked threatening. I think, he locked it down enough that it looked like we had that pretty much in the bag after that. Didn't get the wickets necessarily to really just cut off the head there, but they did what a strike bowler. They did what 2 strike bowlers are supposed to do, and I was watching that thinking well, I guess Lockie Ferguson's really established himself to that degree now. This is the point we're at, where Lockie Ferguson isn't just here's this up and coming fast bowler who's doing some good things here. Lockie Ferguson is a legit strike bowler who is trusted at the most important moments of games, and it hasn't I was thinking about it, that watching the game, and wondering if I should write about this, because it hasn't happened as suddenly as it feels like it's happened. It feels like this World Cup has just been absolutely star-making for him, and it has been because of the occasion. But like you said, he did great over in the UAE against Pakistan, and he's played 16 matches going back to the start of that series. He's taken 39 wickets at an average of 19.97. Those are actually Shane Bond numbers. That's actually... I'm not saying he's as good as Shane Bond, because Shane Bond is probably the greatest ODI bowler I've ever seen in my life, and I don't believe there's anything anyone could say to convince me otherwise. Shane Bond at his peak was literally unplayable. So Lockie Ferguson, without that, late reverse swing, he's never going to get to that mark. But he's locking it down. He's doing he's been doing this for the entire Kiwi summer. He's been steadily building himself up, building his profile, just kind of ensuring that he is a first 11 player, and at this point he's without doubt a first 11 player. Start of the World Cup, maybe there was a question who would Tim Southee come in for? Would it come in for Henry or Ferguson? At this point, there's absolutely no debate that Ferguson is one of our key bowlers. So, sorry Matt Henry, who then had to bowl that over after Ferguson finished his 10th, and got pumped for 25 by Carlos Brathwaite and absolutely let the West Indies back into the game by bowling a leg ball right on his hip against, right in the swinging arc of one of the best hitters in world cricket. Then he followed that up with 2 full tosses, which all 3 of them got put to the fence. The bouncer that followed that was all right, but it's still a top edge over the keeper for 4. That was just an awful over from Matt Henry. And when we're talking about that triumvirate of Ferguson, Henry, and Neesham from the first 3 games, I will follow that up by saying that I thought Jimmy Neesham's over after that was outstanding. Just came in and bowled to a good field. It's what you want to do with a bowler like that who's been forced to bowl late in the game because of whatever reason, because we picked 2 all-rounders instead of having a 5th bowler. That's pretty much why that happened. But you're asking Jimmy Neesham to come in and bowl an absolutely crucial over when West Indies has just got themselves in the point where, okay, 1 mistake and the game's over, but still, no mistakes, and they're going to win this because Carlos Brathwaite was a couple hits away from closing that thing out. In the end, he was 1 hit away from closing that thing out. That final ball of Neesham's over, if that goes for 6, it's game over and West Indies win. Trent Boult literally makes a great catch on the boundary. That's a metre away from being game over either way. So crazy stuff there. But Jimmy Neesham, they gave him a leg side field. They gave him an easy plan. here's what you're going to do. Just keep bowling bounces at him because we don't want to go full because he's going to destroy that. And Neesham executed that perfectly. I was really, I was so impressed. He mixed up his pace just a little bit. And he didn't bowl it too short that he was then limited to not be, he didn't get the old warning that he won from the over champion. No more of that, please. He kept them just under shoulder length, and he changed the line just enough that it was, mixing it up. I thought it was a fantastic over from Jimmy Neesham, but equally, I thought it was an abysmal over from Matt Henry, and if Matt Henry can't bowl at the death, then I'm afraid, I just don't think he can be in the team, because someone has to be able to bowl those overs, and at least Tim Southee, not the most reliable death bowler, we've seen plenty of evidence of that in the past, but at least he can bowl a Yorker, so at this point, I think just that specialist death bowling tactic, we got caught out in both these last 2 games by not being able to, bowl nice and consistent. We got away with it in the end because overall our, steady strengths made up for our steady weaknesses, but just death bowling's been a problem for the Blackcaps for a long time, and we can't have Matt Henry bowling those overs, and if Matt Henry's not going to bowl them, and if we need our strike bowlers to come in with a couple overs in the middle, because someone's got to be able to offer something, because we can't rely on De Grandhomme and Santner to just bowl that 3 RPO through all those middle overs like they did against South Africa. I think the balance of the team, we either need to bring in another strike bowler for probably De Grandhomme at this point. I think Neesham's probably got the little edge there, but for one of those all-rounders or for Matt Henry, because I've got concerns otherwise, to be honest. But yeah, Lockie Ferguson, fantastic. Jimmy Neesham bowled a great over at the end there. So I do want to keep the positive spin on those 2 things.
So since the start of that UAE series, so since the 1st of November 2018, Lockie Ferguson has played 16 of his 32 ODI games, so pretty much half. And his bowling average has gone from, his career average is 25.45. And since the start of November 2018, it's gone down to 19.97. And he has a career average of 25, which is absolutely bonkers. So Lockie Ferguson has been out here creeping in the shadows, not getting too much, high praise, but he's performing at a high level. Since the start of 2018, he has gone wicketless in just 2 games, which is bloody impressive as well. So he takes wickets, that's what he does, Mr. Wicket Man.
He's got 3 wickets in 4 of the 5 games at the World Cup so far. So even just then, it's not just wickets, it's wickets and wickets.
And RPO.
And RPO. Hasn't gone over 6 in any of these games.
He has a better RPO than both Mitchell Starc and Jofra Archer.
Get in there.
So Lockie Ferguson is doing bloody well, and that's just... I just wish there was a batsman like Lockie Ferguson. I just wish there was a batsman in this Blackcaps batting lineup who was like, yo, I'm here. This is my stage. You guys should be talking about me. I'm undercover. I've been just scoring runs solidly throughout this World Cup, doing a great job for my nation. Instead, it's the star power that has been doing the job, and I just wish there was a batsman who was doing a Lockie Ferguson at this World Cup. It may be Colin De Grandhomme wildcard. I believe you've got some thoughts on Colin De Grandhomme that, I don't know, they may differ to my belief that Colin De Grandhomme is going to let you down. He's that guy. He's that guy who's going to let you down. Everyone's going to think, oh, Colin De Grandhomme's coming to the crease, World Cup semi-final, the Blackcaps are in with a chance, and he just goes swinging. He's only got one gear. Everyone knows it. Everyone knows he's just out there to hit boundaries. And how many times have we seen it just in normal ODI cricket wildcard in the Kiwi summer where the Blackcaps just need to not lose a wicket. They just need to see out the innings. They just need to just bat sensibly. And Colin De Grandhomme can't. He literally cannot bat sensibly. That isn't to say he's a bad batsman. It's just people need to understand what Colin De Grandhomme is. He's a whacker. And as long as everyone's happy with that and understands that the likelihood of Colin De Grandhomme playing such an innings in a high-pressure environment against the best bowling attacks of this World Cup, happy days. Just don't get your hopes up. Don't come out here saying Colin De Grandhomme is a key player for the Blackcaps, because probably gonna be let down.
Well, he's a luxury player, isn't he? Like, he's not there to be a reliable presence, but he's there because once in every 5 games he'll do something extraordinary, and that was against South Africa, because that innings that he bowled really well in that game too, but his batting innings, scoring 60 at way more than a run a ball, I can't remember exactly what it was, but you know, and just steadying it along with Kane Williamson there, as Williamson wasn't scoring at a crazy rate there. He was just holding it down and just trying to get through and find some support from somewhere. De Grandhomme comes in and just starts pummeling the boundaries. And when he hits the ball cleanly, it's incredible. Like, he hits the ball so clean, so easy, so effortlessly with such power. That's, like, I can see why people get so swept up in what he can be. And he's not going to be a reliable force, but I was pretty bloody impressed by him against South Africa, because he did what he had to do with the bat and ball at once. I don't think I've ever seen him more impressive for the Blackcaps, certainly not in ODIs. I mean, he's got a test match century, so that counts for something. And of course his test debut against Pakistan, getting a bunch of wickets on day one. But here he was being a factor with both bat and ball in the same game. And I'm like, okay, well, this is peak De Grandhomme. This is what he can be. This is what they're picking him to do. I'm impressed by the fact he was able to show that. I'm really encouraged by the fact he was able to show that. But I still don't think he's a reliable presence, and I still don't think that he is the most balanced option to have coming in at that point in both the batting and bowling attack. He's just like, if he could be 10 Ks quicker with the ball, he could be really useful. But I mean, that's kind of his thing, is that he takes the pace off it and slows it down. But like, yeah, I'm not sure how well that'll hold up against top guys. It was notable that like there was never any question of whether he would bowl that that over that Jimmy Neesham bowled against the West Indies. Like, it had to be Neesham. He's the only one he's more trustworthy in those death overs, and I think that's more important to the team, having those death overs rather than having those middle overs, when you could, eat more comfortably. Like, you've already got Mitchell Santner for 1 point going through those. So what I think has been really interesting is both Brendan McCullum in his commentary stints over in England, and also Mike Hesson in his little newspaper columns that he's doing at the moment. Both of them have said that having that extra all-rounder is too much of a luxury, like too much of like trying to cover your bases and have a little bit of everything. And it's not trusting either one of them to be a legit all-rounder, which is what they need to do. Well, rather what they need to be as players. But each of them also seem to be calling quite strongly for Ish Sodhi to come into the team as another attacking weapon, someone who can attack through the middle overs, but also someone who, when batsmen are hitting out, can bowl a little bit at the death as well and take the pace off at the death, which I think would have been rather nice against Carlos Brathwaite. And the way that one went towards the end there, certainly bowling against tail enders, which he's extremely good at. So I think there's an option there. I also think Tim Southee still coming in for Matt Henry is the preferable option, but I also am pretty convinced at this point that Gary Stead doesn't want to change anything that he doesn't have to. So it's a matter of whether they see the priorities here, whether they see like we've done well to this point, but we can tweak it to be a little bit better, or whether they play the steady hand as steady as she goes the rest of the way, which seems more likely. I do want to applaud Colin De Grandhomme for how outstandingly well he played against South Africa, but I still also agree with you that he's not really the dude. He's not the dude going into the semi-finals.
You have 5 seconds to tell me what year Colin De Grandhomme made his ODI debut.
It was late. It was his last one, so I'll say 2016. Was it 2017?
It was 2012.
Oh, what?
He made his ODI debut 2012 in a series against South Africa that the Blackcaps lost in New Zealand 3-0. Let me just read this team list to your wildcard.
This is fine. I love these things.
Rob Nicol, Martin Guptill, Brendan McCullum batting number 3, Kane Williamson, James Franklin, Colin De Grandhomme, Nathan McCullum, Andrew Ellis, Kyle Mills, Michael Bates, Andrew Mackay.
Jesus Christ, that bowling lineup's going to struggle, eh? No wonder we got swept.
Colin De Grandhomme actually scored 36 off 36, so that was nice. And he bowled 1 over for 9 runs.
You know what, though? I just looked that up, and that was the only game he played until the December 2016, so I was pretty close. Late 2016 was when he became an actual member of the ODI squad, aside from that one loose game. So I'm confident with my prediction. I think it was wrong, but it was justifiable.
Yeah, I wouldn't say 4 years is close.
No, but it was one game, and he didn't play again for 4 years.
That's the trivial.
It was such an outlier. Yeah, that is why it's a good pub quiz question.
Not
Stump a lot of people with that one.
Not the strongest Blackcaps team we've ever seen.
No.
But hence they lost 3-0 to South Africa. But yeah, just interesting. Colin De Grandhomme making his debut back in 2012. Any other thoughts, Wildcard, on the Blackcaps? Or even just Cricket World Cup extrapolated out if you feel the need to?
Well, we've hit all my Blackcaps chats points that I had sketched down for this one. Wider Cricket World Cup thoughts? It'd be nice if people figured out how to bowl to David Warner. That'd be nice.
Who's your favourite? Like, who are you saying they will win the World Cup as of right now?
I've said Australia from the start. India seem like the obvious favourite. The big behemoth team out there. I'm not sure if they're I don't know. I'm not sure if they're as reliable as they seem, though, and I definitely don't think England are. England were actually surprisingly shown that earlier than I expected. I don't know how they lost that game. I went to bed with England absolutely in control against Sri Lanka. Woke up and they'd somehow managed to lose. And they're just that team, England. They've done everything perfectly to prepare themselves for this World Cup. And they're hosts and everything. It's all nice and solid, but they're just a little too brittle to be able to trust them. Whereas Australia, despite the fact that they look like a much weaker than usual Australian team, they have the key players who are going to perform in the way that key players have had to so far this tournament. All the best teams have been relying on their best players, and Australia, no different. They also have just that really annoying, gritty Australian attitude, and I'm just convinced that they're going to find a way to win games, even if it's ugly, even if it's not, fluid, impressive cricket. They're still gonna win things, and that's frustrating. But then they got pumped by India earlier on, so maybe maybe not so much. Then again, it would be extremely Australian to peak at the times when it matters most. So
Yeah, you said extremely Australian, and the same applies to England. It would be extremely English to crumble under the
yeah, it
pressure.
would be.
I think that pressure might just get to England, and they've been hyping this up for so long, and I just Australia are going to be Australia. They're just going to do what they do. They are very good at cricket, regardless of however you feel about Australia. They are very good at cricket. They have good players. They perform at a high level. It's hard to go past Australia. Like, Stephen Smith's got 3 half centuries, just cruising, averaging 40, just going about his business. Aaron Finch, 4 innings, scoring over 50 in 6 innings. So David Warner and Aaron Finch have both had 4 innings out of 6 each in which they've passed 50. So that's pretty damn good. I'm definitely feeling the Aussie vibes as well. I think, when we ultimately look at it from this point on, our prediction kind of mentality is that New Zealand are going to be New Zealand. They're going to play well. They'll be there and probably lose when it matters. Australia, they're the big dogs. Everyone's worried about Australia. They know how to win World Cups. They know how to win cricket games. India are the bit of the wild card. You never really know what you're going to get with India. They're there or thereabouts. They can very definitely win it, but you just don't know. You never know with India. And England, they're probably going to fuck it up.
Poor England.
And outside of that, I can't really see anyone else even being a factor. Pakistan have to have a really good game against the Blackcaps, which is overnight Wednesday, so we'll be back probably on Thursday to talk our way through New Zealand versus Pakistan. Key stretch here for Pakistan. They've got South Africa and then New Zealand. So if they can win both of those games, one of those games, then they have Afghanistan after that. And you've also got a big game. You've got a couple of big games here. Bangladesh, if they can get a win over Afghanistan, that's going to put them in a little tricky little position, perhaps contending for the top 4. England versus Australia is going to be very interesting as well. But key team to watch out for tomorrow is... tonight, actually, is Pakistan. They face South Africa. So we'll learn a lot about Pakistan and what they're up to from this game against South Africa. And we'll be back talking Blackcaps cricket on Thursday. We'll be back talking rugby league matters, New Zealand versus Tonga tomorrow. And we'll see what else pops up in between. Until then, kia kaha, stay beautiful. And yeah, bye-bye.